it's almost become mainstream to be good. But there's like all these other agencies that are apparently good and like
Mhm.
B Corps or social enterprises. And so it's harder to explain why we're better than that. I think we are better than that. Fundamentally, our business model is democratic. I don't think that's the same as like all the B Corps and social enterprises you get out there. But I don't know if clients can see why we are cut above.
Yeah.
This is How Not to Do Business from Changing the Narrative. I'm Chris King, and this is a show about companies that are breaking convention, refusing to embrace the usual rules of who owns a business, who makes decisions, and who gets paid what. And they're succeeding. Each episode, I talk to the people within these organizations. When you picture a tech agency, you probably imagine a founder or a couple of investors at the top, a hierarchy beneath them, and the profits flowing up to whoever owns the shares. Outlandish is none of that. It's a digital agency in Finsbury Park, London, that's owned by the people who work there. A worker cooperative with no boss and no shareholders, where decisions are made by consent and the profits go back into social change, including a community workspace it runs called Space 4. My guests this week are two of its member owners, Natasha Natarajan and Maddy Neghabian. We get into what sets a co-op apart now that being good has gone mainstream, how they're surviving a shrinking market and the arrival of AI on their own terms, and why genuine collective ownership is still so hard to fund and so hard for people to even picture. Here's Natasha and Maddy. Enjoy. So for someone who's never come across Outlandish, can you please explain a bit about what you do?
Natasha, you're much better.
Yeah. We're laughing because we do so many things that it's quite hard to explain coherently.
Yeah.
But okay, Outlandish is effectively a digital agency and a worker-owned cooperative. And we build sort of complicated digital products in the tech for good sector. So we try to build tech that's good for the world and for clients that we believe in. We've done a lot of like campaign websites. We maintain websites for trade unions. We work for the public sector. At the moment, our biggest project is to build a case management tool for energy advisors. But yeah, I think since our inception as a worker-owned cooperative, we've been interested in more than just the commercial tech side of our business. And we've put our profits into a lot of social projects. And the biggest, most successful of those is Space 4, Space for the number. And we're a workspace in Finsbury Park. And it's kind of a hub for tech and co-ops and social impact businesses. And that's primarily what myself and Maddy lead on in the co-op. Do you want to say more about Facebook?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a success story so far and continuing to grow. And it's very established now here in Finsbury Park and Islington. And we work with the council a lot. So our biggest sort of funder, as the council's funded the space, but also our biggest partner is Islington Council. So we do a lot of stuff with them, but it's amazing. It's a really unique and amazing sort of, I don't know, co-working, event space, hub, community, whatever you want to call it here in this amazing road called Farnhill Road in Finsbury Park, which is actually very much about fashion and wedding dresses. So we're sort of like above. Oh, we've got an office here. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I think most people would be in East London roundabout and, the tech sort of hub of it, but we're a little bit on the outskirts of it, but that's kind of what we like. That's actually what works best for us. So, yeah.
And then, so what sets Outlandish apart from the average digital agency or even like the average tech for good agency? Beyond, like, obviously you've explained that you've been putting profits into things like Space 4 and other things. So is there anything else that you would say that sets you apart from the average agency then?
We got the members, but we work with freelancers. I guess a lot of agencies do that, but we also have always the journey of anyone joining work with us to become a member. So not everyone would do that, I'm assuming. But it's everyone's interested can join. They can come to member meetings. They can ask us questions. We're very transparent. But also we work in sociocracy model. So every meeting is a way of everyone having a say in what happens. So there's obviously we don't have a hierarchy, which is amazing in its own, but also that we take turns and everyone feels empowered. And it's actually called consent-based decision making, which is massive part of how we run all of our meetings essentially, and is Space for as well.
I think we've built through the Space 4 project like a huge community around us. So we're quite like a hub of professionals working in this space. And I think that's a big asset to any of our clients who work with us. Like we have a space, we have like a buzz going around about like tech in the social impact space. And we're building more than just tech.
And do you think then that's a unique selling point, as it were, something that sets you apart from the competition in the eyes of, say, UN agencies, Greenpeace, and kind of aligned organizations?
I get the sense that it used to be, but now there's so like it's almost become mainstream to be good or something. But there's like all these other agencies that are apparently good and like B Corps or whatever, social enterprises. And so it's harder to explain why we're better than that. I think we are better than that. Like, fundamentally our business model is democratic. I don't think that's the same as like all the B Corps and social enterprises you get out there. But I don't know if those clients can see why we are cut above.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard to say, but I think definitely at the beginning, right? That's like at the beginning of Outlandish, that was a huge thing.
Yeah.
And for CoTech and all of that, like people were really interested in what we were doing. It was unique.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you've read online about us, I think you've probably read about community wealth building, why even Space 4 is here in the first place, because with the council, that is the aim, is basically to kind of bring wealth into the community locally, but also obviously more than that. But a few other models areas have picked up on that, and there have been like success stories on their own. I think there's one actually that I can't remember. You probably remember that more than I do. But
well, Scotland's just passed an act that's going to be focused on community wealth building.
Yeah, and that's amazing. It's sort of in what we do, so we sometimes forget that. It's like well, obviously but actually a lot of how we even have meetings and things we talk about here is literally about like what is that bringing to the community, how does that help with the immediate area here we're at, and yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's an amazing cool project to be working on right today.
Yeah, I suppose that it's obviously from a commercial perspective it makes it more challenging, but from other perspectives it's a positive thing that the bar has maybe risen, because there is B Corp, there's all these alternatives, and there's the tech for good has expanded, and obviously that's desirable. But obviously then what you guys are doing is next level in terms of that democracy, the sociocracy, and things like that. And I suppose it's the key thing is raising awareness within the wider community as to the value of that, why it's important, the worker co-ops and more democratic and non-hierarchical and egalitarian decision making, and I suppose so long as that's alien to the majority of people, then it's going to be harder for them to envisage it and value it and the likes, which is why there needs to be more people understanding and experiencing what it is to be in a co-op.
Yeah.
Which is the point of this podcast, in part.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, the setup, makes it has its challenges, both theoretical and practical. So what do you think is more challenging for you as a co-op to work and function within the sector? And is there any resistance forces, external forces? We'll talk about internal forces later, but external forces that are kind of pushing you in a direction that you don't really want to go and that you have to resist?
Yeah, it's definitely things are happening around us, as obviously we're a tech co-op, so tech is our bread and butter, and but tech has changed a lot, and projects that we used to be part of our business we sell more of, it's just not there anymore. So we've had to kind of really think about what we're here and how can we survive this change, and pivot slightly, maybe away for some things we used to do and trying to think of ourselves a bit differently. So, but then also stay true to what we really believe in our, and that we do still want to work on social good projects, and we would never, take on like an oil company, for example. But these are conversations we have in our meetings still, and it's a big thing. What do? We kind of, at the moment, working on our website slightly to change a little bit. I think some of the things that we used to do 10 years ago are just not relevant or just not in the books anymore, and that's okay. We obviously, as any business at the moment, we worried about what the future looks like, but we're also proactively changing and working on what we have and people we know and where are we with the change, but also staying true to being a cooperative model.
Yeah, it's a shame that the not-for-profit sector, I guess, just doesn't have as much money anymore. And they used to be our biggest clients, a lot of them. And feels like there's way more agencies, like socially good digital agencies. So we're all competing for smaller projects, basically. So yeah, we've had to think about what type of work can we do that we also feel passionate about. And yeah, also with the onset of AI, that brings even more bigger existential and ethical questions about like, what do we want to adopt or not, and how do we want to adopt it? Yeah, it's been a big transition period for us. And definitely the sector has changed, and we've been trying to keep up and keep relevant. And it's not just us, it's like the whole tech sector and then the tech co-op sector as well. We're all trying to figure out what our place is in this new economy.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that, then, how are you approaching the adoption and incorporation of AI into your practice, into your work, into the agency? I'm sure that's been quite a challenging conversation to be had collectively. No,
it continues to be challenging. It's different people, right, with different feelings, and also it in itself it moves so quickly.
We're not, saying, no, we're not going to engage in AI at all. We want to know and learn so we can use it if we need to figure stuff out. So we're writing our own policies and all that. But also we have clients who come to us for support, and they want us to help them with their AI. So we have to kind of, guide them through this journey as well. But I think what we're seeing is, though, that people, kind of go fully into it, but then also realize that maybe that's just not the future either. So then they kind of take a step back and trying to figure out how actually that works within their businesses. But so far, I feel like we've had a very good attitude to AI, and we're upskilling. Our main tech developer is doing some AI learning, not to use and not to have it in our systems at all. It's more about just learning and knowing what it is and how can we use it better. And we have actually AI machine learning program that's coming into Space 4 from our events room here, which is something we've not done before. So that's new, but we're kind of slowly and carefully kind of looking at it and seeing what that means for us. And but at the same time, obviously, we're very, very clear on that. We're about the people, about the community, and we don't want some machine kind of vibe in this space. So it's very important.
And so then, in terms of like internal forces, then how do you maintain the cooperative way of working, and especially in the face of big things like AI, where people might have quite opposing views? And what are the greatest challenges currently from the inside, and how do you hold the line and maintain your values going forward?
Yeah, we have a very open conversation about AI with everyone we work with. And actually one of our freelance developers does not want to engage in AI at all. So but then we're aware of it and we talk about it, and we want to, trying to make sure that he also knows that we're not going to do that. So that's sort of sharing him that we're staying true to what we believe is our cooperative motto. But I think empowering everyone as well to have, be okay to have opinions, and it's sort of no judgment.
Yeah, I think transparency is definitely a pillar of Outlandish. Like nothing's really behind closed doors, for better or for worse. We've been thinking about what kind of decisions can the members make without the freelancers sometimes.
Right.
Or not without, but just like when can we sort of, choose the direction of our business, even if the freelancers aren't quite on board with it. And that's been a tension that we've been working through, I guess.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that we've resolved it yet, but it's something that we think about.
Yeah, and Space 4, we have Space 4 users who come from different backgrounds, and some of them are not-for-profit, small businesses, charities, freelancers, and some people have completely had to change their jobs because of AI, because they just haven't survived the AI bubble. And they're still in the space, so we're trying to help and support them through this as well. And also that's just keeping it within what we believe is okay. But I think if everyone is doing this, everyone's going through this, it's just everywhere. We used to have a coding school here in Space 4 called Founders and Coders. I think you probably know that. And they did, they used to do back-end, front-end coding, and it was free school, and they've had to now change completely their business model because the funding for that program just wasn't there anymore. And just tough decisions about how do we survive this thing, and maybe it's not a bubble, maybe this is to stay, or we don't know. We're just everyone's figuring out and trying to get through this.
Yeah, of course. And so Outlandish isn't a standard co-op. It's a cooperative consortium with a core group of member owners. And you guys are stewarding the business, but then alongside the freelancers who you call Outlanders, and they're involved but without carrying the same responsibility. So how does that work exactly, that two-tiered system? And obviously you're saying that there's a potential evolution of it, how to separate out, have instances where the freelancers are engaged, and maybe have instances where the freelancers are less engaged in the decision-making process. So could you maybe explain a bit about how that works, that two-tiered system?
Well, we don't call ourselves a consortium, actually. We call ourselves a worker cooperative. Freelancers are, they're kind of open to apply for membership after, I think, 6 months or so. And then they can become a member. They have 6 months of being an Outlander where they're sort of a member in training, and then they apply officially for the membership. So the members meeting every week is just for us 4 members. But we do have, we're organized sociocratically, which means different parts of the business have different circles, and the freelancers can be part of those circles. So, if the freelance developers are in tech circle, or like a freelance marketing person is in the comm circle. So they input in decisions that relate to their role, but maybe not to the larger business. But we're obviously quite a small business, and we are a very social business because we have the space in Finsbury Park. So some of our freelancers are around us quite a lot. And we go for lunch every week. So they end up being part of conversations in, I guess, quite kind of an informal way. And that sort of, we want to include them because they deliver on some of our biggest projects. I wouldn't say we have a hard and fast rule about how we interact with our freelancers or not. We're just quite an open business, and they don't have final say on anything. But because we're around them quite a lot, they do affect the decisions we make in a more subtle way, I would say.
Yeah, and I think we've noticed that people who are freelancers, if they love what we do, they almost could be a member and they can understand everything, but they don't want to be a member in the sense that the kind of taking kind of business ownership is actually a big jump from being a freelancer. And the reason why they're freelancers is because they don't want to be responsible for business and the money and all the risk that comes with it. But so we're kind of happy not to trying to get people to jump into the membership the way we used to. I think back in the days it was a bit more, not easier, but just a bit lighter on that. But I think with the economy changing, all that stuff, and people, freelancers, they kind of want to keep that, the kind of power they have within that role. I think we recruited someone recently, instead of doing the whole Outlander freelancer thing, to become a member, to jump in to be memberships. We tried something different, but that didn't work either. So then now we've come back to sort of being full members with freelancers. But yeah, it's different. I think I've been in the business for 7 years, and it's a very different times, obviously, now to what it was then. Of just like, come and join us and be a member of this amazing co-op. It's just not good. It's not enough to want to become a member. You need more than that.
Yeah, we don't really have the finances as well to just hire lots of people. So it's dependent on business as well now, because once you employ someone, then you need to offer them long-term work, and we don't have as much flexibility on that.
Yeah.
So the freelancers we have, they don't want to own or run a business. And I think it's important sometimes to remind them that a little bit, maybe, like you're choosing not to own and run this business, but we are. So there are some decisions that we might make that you might not love.
Yeah.
But I don't think we do that very much, do we?
No, it's like an open conversation.
Yeah.
Back and forth.
And in terms of external funding for co-op development, because obviously you're very much pushing and supporting people who are on that journey to creating co-ops or transitioning to co-ops. And so, Natasha, you've written, the fact that in theory, there's this rhetoric that councils and government funders, umbrella bodies they're enthusiastic and on paper, but that there's a gap between everybody wanting to support it in theory, that rhetoric, but almost no funds actually available, and that you've spent a lot of time on funding grant applications to no avail, and therefore you've pivoted. I know you wrote in a blog post that you've decided to pivot and explore things differently instead of having to go through that painful process. So what do you think is behind all of that? What is the root cause of that?
Well, why aren't they investing in co-ops?
Yeah, the rhetoric not matching the reality.
Funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like that whole academics thing. They love, like, the people who love promoting co-ops have never been in a co-op themselves.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's kind of a different point. Why do they not invest in co-op?
Also, I just don't think a lot of people understand what a co-op is. So it's hard to invest in something you don't really understand. And which is actually a quite big thing for us over the years, is like, should we really be a co-op? Because there's quite a lot of funding we can't access because we're a cooperative.
Right.
So there is a bit, I mean, we haven't made any decisions, and we probably won't, but there are businesses around us that we know who were co-ops have had to completely pivot away from that and call themselves, I don't know, limited companies or whatever, to be able to get some funding to survive. So that does happen. Yeah.
Right.
I think the government has is focusing on this SME thing. I think people don't know about co-ops, and now they've started all these different types of businesses, like community interest companies, there's charities, there's social enterprises. Those are more familiar to the general public than what a co-op is, or a worker-owned co-op. So I kind of get why, if there's council funding available or government funding available, we kind of have to fit into this SME mold.
Yeah.
And even community wealth building stuff now, it's all about SMEs and social value, progressive procurement, but co-ops don't quite feature, or it's more aspirational, because the co-op sector in this country is still quite small. So it's kind of hard to for them to promote the model as well, I guess, because there's not that many good examples of co-op. So yeah, I mean, we did put in a big bid a couple of years ago for the Shared Prosperity Fund to run an accelerator for democratic businesses. Again, we didn't say co-op specifically because we wanted to appeal to this more democratic business sector thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it feels like they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot maybe by focusing on co-ops, because there's not enough of us to prove that it's a good thing, maybe. And we've got all these other business types now which allegedly are as impactful or can at least fill up a social value framework the same way we can, you know. It's a bit surface level, I think.
Yeah, and actually Islington Council is one of the few councils, I think, who kind of were wanting to understand co-ops and co-op models and supportive of us, because when we meet people who are based on other boroughs, they often say that councils don't engage with them on that they're anything but just a business, a small business, whatever. They don't really care what they are. So we're quite lucky in that sense that we do have a council who do care and wants to, promote co-ops. But, it is hard. It's hard to be a co-op at the moment. So yeah, it is.
In what sense? So can you maybe elaborate upon that, about why it's particularly hard for a co-op at the minute?
Why is it hard? Well, obviously we're a small business, so that's always it's a risk for any business, but particularly small businesses. And we are, I don't know, we might talk about it in a bit, but we are all on 0-hour contracts. So that means basically that if there is no work, then there isn't any money. And if you want to get paid within the co-op, you bring the work in. So then you can build your salary within projects. So you can't just sit in a meeting and go, well, I can get my salary end of the month. Like, it's just, that's the way this co-op is anyways. And we have to kind of proactively sell and make money so we can survive. But I'm guessing, in other businesses, if you're not on these type of contracts, then you have a set salary, and then you kind of know, like, at least like where you're at and how much you can get. And so it's risky, and I think a lot of people don't want to take that risk. It's hard to grow the business because of this. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it is hard. But
yeah, I think like entrepreneurs, it's hard because if you're a co-op, if you decide to choose the co-op model, you can't really it's not easy to get external investment because you can't have like external shareholder kind of in your business as a co-op. So there's that. It's kind of hard to get startup funding for like a co-op that's starting up. But then equally, I think people don't know how to cooperate. Like if you're an entrepreneur with an idea, like let's say you're starting a business, the idea of completely sharing your business with one or two other people is kind of like unusual in this day and age, because I think we're in a culture which values like the individual genius or like the entrepreneurial whatever. And there's not that many examples in like mainstream culture of like three people getting together to equally do something.
Yeah.
Or like, and how do you make difficult decisions in a group setting? Like none of those skills are taught really in schools, I would say. And like none of that sort of culture exists in public. So to get people understanding how you might do that, just like on a personal level, how to like have a conversation that you don't dominate, for example, is sometimes quite challenging for someone who's like has a business idea.
Yeah, and actually I wanted to kind of, we're talking about how hard it's been a co-op, but at the same time, because it's really hard out there, it's actually also amazingly supportive to be in a co-op, because we help, you just make me think of like all the ways we help each other. So, no one's on their own to figure it out on their own. You just kind of bring it in. You have some needs, maybe you need time off, you have children, you want to, like, we just help and support. And that's so unique to be in this like little bubble of a co-op, because we can do that. And it's just, I just sometimes feel extremely lucky that we can have these open conversations and go, look, I need help. I can't do this. Can we figure it out? And we do help each other. And I don't know many businesses who would do that. Yeah. So at the same time, it's hard. Yes, there's a lot of stuff going on, but we also have ownership of the co-op, and we can make decisions within ourselves, and we take the risk together, and we support each other at whatever it may be, but we're all in it together.
And so that barrier, that kind of failure of imagination, or just the prevailing culture around what it means to run a business, and that it is this kind of lone entrepreneur and stuff? What do you think needs to happen for there to be a genuine, meaningful shift away from that, and nurturing collaboration, nurturing cooperation, and just understanding that there is a different path that can be walked?
I don't know. I mean, starting at like school level and talking to young students and who've got great business ideas is like they can set these sort of collectives and co-ops, whatever you want to call them, at very early on, and share their power and not worrying about holding the power and things like this. I think if you have this conversation at that level, maybe in the next, like, future generations of entrepreneurs, more people are willing to kind of explore these type of models. But unless you start that age, honestly, if you kind of come to someone at the age of, like, I don't know, 25, 30, and they've already got something in place, it's really hard to go, actually, I don't have to hold everything, I can share, and we can grow together. So, but there's a need for it. There's a bit of an urge. People want to, but they're worried, they don't understand it.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. I quite like businesses choosing different models.
Yeah.
Like there's some businesses now that are like co-CEOs.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff where like two people take on leadership or things like that, which maybe make people think a bit about what's possible.
Yeah.
In organizational structures. Maybe we need more models, like more examples of that in public culture.
Yeah, actually, like I've noticed some job descriptions popping up where they do share CEO with two, like you said, and it could be a woman and a man. So they're looking for, inputs from everyone, not like one person holding that power. But so it kind of dribbles, and then maybe that goes through the down to the other people working in organizations. So it starts somewhere, right?
It does start, and it feels like there's more talk about collective ownership and with like big tech as well, like just completely creating crazy situations. I think people are like, oh no, what are we going to do? It matters who owns things, so that we just need to keep pushing that conversation further, I guess, like who actually owns everything and what other models are there for owning things. But yeah, it's hard to imagine. I don't know. Yeah.
But how does it relate to then your personal experience? I assume you've had experience in conventionally run businesses, and now you've got this experience within a co-op model. Like, how would you compare them, the benefits, the challenges, and could you ever see yourself going back to conventionally run business model?
Oh, I mean, it keeps me up at night. Because I think, as cool and unique as it is and incredible as it is that also I worry sometimes that we do find ourselves in a bit of like a bubble, and we meet like-minded people who also like what we do and we like what they do. And we don't necessarily want to find out more, or we want to, but we don't have time or whatever, about what others are doing and how they run their businesses and how they survive through, the economy crisis and all that. And I don't, I worry if I had to leave this job and go into like a proper interview and get a role somewhere, whether I would actually be able to. Like, I've got lots of experience, but it's like a, what is it called? Twilight Zone. Is that what it is? When you it's incredible, but also extremely weird and surreal at the same time.
Yeah, did I go back to a normal job? I've never had a normal job, to be honest.
Neither have I, actually.
Right, okay.
I mean, I definitely had a boss before. Could I go back to it? I think I probably could. Like, I do see the value in just having a job where you don't have to bring it home and stuff. 9 to 5. Yeah. Just like, you don't mind. But I think like once you get to a certain age and you want a certain salary, maybe that's not even possible. Like, you can't have a responsibility-less job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you want to earn whatever 40K a year, you're gonna have some 40 plus K, you're gonna have some headache.
Yeah.
So I haven't thought about that for a while. What kind of headache would I not mind with what kind of manager? I think you do get like well-meaning people in hierarchical businesses. I think probably I could go to a like hierarchical small business, but I don't think I'll ever want to go into a big company.
No.
Because that's where you really lose control of everything, like all your agency. At least I think in a small business, even if you have like a manager and owner, whatever, you have some maybe more direct contact with the person who's running the show. And if they are a good person, basically a well-meaning person, generally you have a bit more control over your life.
Yeah.
I think it's been mostly the control of my life that I want to keep.
Well, so a couple of questions just to close up. What prevailing narrative about tech does Outlandish's existence most directly challenge, do you think?
Oh my God, that's such a big question.
I know.
What prevailing narrative about tech?
I don't actually know what to say to that.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, there's lots of narratives, I guess,
yeah.
that it has to be owned by angel investment. It has to be like profit driven.
Who else is doing interesting work in this space that you would like to see on this podcast?
Well, yeah, we were talking about that. There's we know, there's quite a few people, organizations running really cool campaigns. We were kind of thinking about, there is a kind of a office space in Bethnal Green called Pelican House. They're not actually here in Space 4, but we do have quite a lot of connect with them anyways through people who work here and people who work in their offices. And lots of unions based there used to be here, and co-ops, etc. And I think that could be quite interesting. And but the model is really super interesting. And they got this cool building that they've taken over, and they've built it into this amazing, profitable office space, but also a movement, kind of a very lefty movement happening in Bethnal Green, and it's pretty cool. I think you could definitely talk to them as well. What about people here in Space 4? There's some freelancers, small businesses. There's people who do safety and tech. There are also people who basically about to close down their businesses. I mean, that could be an interesting conversation to have as well, as that is happening around us all the time
absolutely.
now. Yeah,
Right.
I think some of the bigger co-ops in co-tech would be maybe interesting for you to interview as well, because one of them, Agile Collective, is fully remote.
Okay.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
And then Creative Co-op are in Colchester.
Okay.
So working in a sort of different environment, I think is quite interesting. They've got a very different model, but they're also trying to like promote and engage with the creative and digital sectors in Essex. So yeah, they're definitely, I would say, doing business differently and investing back in their community and stuff.
Yeah, great.
But also we run, a co-op movement from Space 4. Obviously we are a co-op and we are the movement, but we actually ran a official program with the council a few years ago called Cooperative Islington. And that was funded by Islington Council to grow the movement even more. And there was some money, and then it worked and it was great, but then they didn't have money, and then it was just like, but back and forth. And it never kind of grew up from what it was meant to be. But actually, Natasha is working on the co-op movement from here constantly, and she's now board on the Co-ops UK as of yesterday. Congrats!
Brilliant.
So
nice.
I think we are doing what we can to to share this knowledge about what it is to be in a co-op and how to do things. But I think what really needs is basically like teach people that it is a business, and money comes in, money goes out, and how do you survive like any other business, because that is what it is. And I think if you can do that, then the more people will be a co-op, because they can see that it's they have to do it like everyone else, but it's actually more empowering, and you can have all this amazing thing that comes with the co-op. But essentially also you need support because you're a business like everyone else.
Yep.
I just thought of another co-op though. So we're running an accelerator program for young co-ops at the moment, and there's a group of tree surgeons in Sheffield that have just started a co-op, and they are quite passionate about promoting the co-op model to tradespeople. So that's quite an interesting ambition, I would say.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been great chatting to you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Everything Natasha, Maddy and I discussed is in the show notes, and you'll find this episode and the full archive at content.changingthenarrative.media, where you can also become a member and sign up for the newsletter. Please share, comment, and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast so more people can learn about the alternative ways we can do business. If you would like to support the podcast and Changing the Narrative, then please consider becoming a paying member. New episodes of How Not to Do Business are available every second Tuesday. Thanks for listening.